Oh. So welcome everybody, and we are right now. We're right now going to continue chapter 9. So we did in the middle. I just want to give you a quick. If you remember, what happened was the son of Gidon. What was his name? Anybody remember?
Avimelech.
Avimelech, exactly. He assumed control. And not only that, he asked his brethren, "Will you join me?" And his brother said, "Sure." And he went and behind the back of and he killed all of them, 70 in total. And along with the members of the city of Shechem, except for one was saved. That was Yotam, the youngest, who hid. And Yotam, if you remember towards the end, the last part that we did was Yotam warned, and he cursed him, and he said, God will bring upon fire from Avimelech upon the city of Shechem, and the city Shechem will spew fire on Avimelech, and Yotam then flees and he runs to Be'er, okay, and for his life. So let's continue with chapter 9, verse 22. Vayasar Avimelech al Yisrael shalosh shamim. The word from sar, from an officer or with force, and Avimelech ruled with force for 3 years. Notice he's not a shofet. Okay, so he's not considered a shofet here. He ruled through force. What happened? Vaishlach Elohim ruach ra'ah bein Avimelech uven baalei Shechem, and God sends this conflicting, this feeling of conflict between Avimelech and the settlers, the citizens of Shechem. Vayivgedu baalei Shechem ba'Avimelech, and baalei Shechem, the citizens of Shechem, they rebel against Avimelech, and we're going to hear right now how they rebel.
Yosi,
yes.
Did he rule over Israel or just over the tribe of Manasseh?
So that's a really great question, and here we see that regardless of whom, Israel is still considered together. So even if it was only on a part, and it was clear that it was really more on a specific area, but he definitely had clout on how do you call it, on Israel, or he was being seen as a leader in Israel. And here it's clear that he was over Israel. So we'll assume that it was over the entire region of Israel. He was a self-appointed ruler over the governance over the land of Israel. Okay, but everything stemmed from his discourse and his taking over with Shechem. Okay, the way that the text is written is actually kind of backwards. It actually tells you what they're doing, and then they're giving you the reason why, as opposed to because of this they're doing this. They're telling you what it is, and then they're telling you the reason why. So there's a discourse right now. God is creating this animosity or this friction between Shechem, who actually helped him get to power, and now in Avimelech. Why is there this discourse? Because number 24, Lavo Hamas Shivim Bnei Yerubal Vedamam. Why is this course? Because they realized that he had created, he committed such a bad act when he a crime when he killed off the 70 sons of Yerubal. Yerubal was the second name of Gidon, the 70 children of Yerubal. Vedamam, and his blood is on his hands. Lasum al Avimelech achihem asher haragotam. They started with anger, recognizing that heinous crime of killing his 70 brothers. Ve'al baalei Shechem asher chisku et yadav la'arog et echav. And also they were angry on the previous generation or those citizens of Shechem that actually enabled him to get power. So they kind of, so to speak, woke up and smelled the roses. So they kind of were in a daze beforehand. They didn't care of the act, the heinous act that he did perform beforehand. But suddenly now God awakens this this call to for justice. So what do? The citizens of Shechem put on ambushes al Rashei Ha'arim, on top of the mountains, vayigzelu et kol asher yavor alehem badarech, and they stole, or they I guess if you want to look at it as their Robin Hood type of justice, where they would steal anything that was coming from the official chariots or riders. They would steal from them. Vayugad laVimelech, and this was told to Avimelech. So what exactly is happening here? What are they robbing? People who are coming by. What's the whole point? So actually, they put on these ambushes in order to kill Avimelech. That was the original plan. However, seeing as they are not exactly the straightest of people themselves, they realized, oh, they have the power here, and they took advantage of it, and they started looting from everybody that walked by. And that got word to Avimelech. Avimelech did not live in Shechem, as you will see soon later. He lived in a different city, and Vayugad laVimelech, Avimelech was told, and so he stayed put. He did not travel around, for he realized that his life was in danger. So let's continue with 26. Vayavo Gal ben Eved. Gal, the son of Eved, came to Ve'echav, and his comrades came to Shechem. Vayavru b'Shechem, and they passed through Shechem. Vayivtechu vo ba'alei Shechem, and they created this relationship, and the citizens of Shechem started having confidence in this gentleman. Rashi says that he was from a different country, that he was not Jewish, and he alludes to Ben Eved, that he was a son of a slave. Eved means that he was worshiping something else, another false idols. But regardless, they created this relationship with the citizens of Shechem. What happens? They started vayetzu hasadeh. They went out into the fields. Vayivtzeru et karmehem vayidrechu, and they started to gather or cut all their vintage, their grapes. Vayidrechu, and they stepped on what? So it's another way of saying that they made wine. They stepped, how they used to trod onto the grapes in big vats. So suddenly they began to have confidence in themselves, because they aligned themselves with this Gal ben Eved and his brethren and his comrades, and they started once again going out. So this was the tyranny that Avimelech was ruling with, that they were scared beforehand to go out, to plant, to do anything that was normal life was a danger. But now suddenly that they align themselves with this gentleman, Gal ben Eved, he's empowering them, and suddenly they realize that also Avimelech is not coming around anymore. He might not be aware of what's happening, and they're starting to resume life as was normal. Vayasu hilulim, and they started making festivals. Vayavo beit Elohihem, and they went and they entered to the temples of their God, alluding to the fact that they were not following Judaism. They had their own, they were false gods that they were following. Vaishtu, vaychlu, vaishtu, and they had banquets, and they ate and they drank. Vaikalalu Avimelech, and they cursed Avimelech in public. In other words, they rebelled. They were no longer scared of the consequences of Avimelech. Of course, when you curse a king, or you curse a person who is the leader, it is treason. So that is sometimes considered to be warranted with death. So obviously they no longer had the same fear as they had beforehand. In other words, you want to we're kind of seeing the interplay of power where beforehand Avimelech's hand, pushed them down. They were all scared. Here they are right now, flourishing. They're starting to come out and exert themselves. Vayomer Gal ben Eved, Gal, their leader right now in the city of Shechem, tells the people there, and as well a very important person. He tells, Mi Avimelech, who is Avimelech? Umi Shechem kinavdenu. Let's look. There's two things here. Who is Avimelech? That we should, the city of Shechem, we are such an important people. Why are we worshiping? Why are we bowing down to Avimelech? Why are we letting him reign over us? Hello, Ben Yerubal. He's the son of Gidon of Yerubal. Uzvul Pekido. And he has this right-hand man whose name is Zvul. So why are we so scared of these guys? Ivdu et anshe Chamor Avishchem. Why don't we follow Chamor Avishchem? Do you remember the story with Yaakov and Dinah? Do you remember Dinah goes out into the field and Chamor Avishchem is the one who takes her, and he doesn't want to give her back, and he rapes her, and then you have Shimon and Levi who go out and wipe out the entire city. Do you remember that? This is where they are. So Chamor and Avishchem, these were the original rulers of the city of Shechem. And so this Gal ben Evet says, why are we following these nobody? Who is Avimelech? He has nothing to do with Shechem at all. He doesn't even live in this city. Why don't we go back to the people who used to rule here, who is Chamor Avishchem? So this is his idea. Umi tenatam hazeh biyadi. Oh, if only this people were under my command, he says, Vasirat Avimelech, I will go out and I will remove Avimelech. Vayomer la Avimelech, this was told to Avimelech, Rabbe tzavacha vatzea. So he sends actually Gal ben Evet sends out a note to Avimelech through Zvul. Zvul happens to be his second hand in command. Zvul was also the one who was in charge of the city of Shechem. And he sends him a note. He says, you know what? Why don't we have a battle? Go and fill up your ranks. Go and bring your army, and we will beat you. We will get rid of you. But challenge me. I put you to challenge. Vaishma Zvul sar ha'ir. Zvul hears this note. He hears this cry. Edivrei Gal ben Evet vayichar apo, and he is furious. So he hears all this talk that we don't care. Let Avimelech bring his army. We will go out there. We will finally get rid of this guy. He has no call, no reason to assume power over us. And his Zvul sar ha'ir, Zvul, the right hand man of Avimelech, who happens to be also the commander of the city of Shechem, he hears this and he's angered. And he Vaishlach malachim el Avimelech, and he sends messengers to Avimelech bet Torma. So this is where he is. He's in Torma, and we will soon learn that Torma has actually two different names that goes under. So he sends messengers to Avimelech saying, Hine Gal ben Evet ve'echav ba'im Shechema. We have this guy who came into Shechem. This guy named Gal ben Evet and all his companions. Vehinam tsarim et ha'ir alecha, and they are inciting the city against you. So this is what I suggest to you. Ve'ata, therefore, kum laila, ata ve'hamasher itach ve'erov basadeh. Why don't you come set out at night, come with your forces, and hide in the fields around the city? In other words, you're going to ambush them. V'hayav aboker kizrach hashemesh, and once the sun rises in the morning, tashkim ufashta al ha'ir, you will advance early in the morning on the city, and you will conquer the city. V'nehu v'ha'am asher ito yotzim elecha v'asita lo kasher timtzadecha. you will sit in ambush, and as they will go out to do their business that they need to do, they will not see you because they're not expecting you. When they are out, you will be able to do whatever you want to do with them and do as you please. And some Mefarshim, some commentaries say kasher timtzab yadecha. It's almost as though he's chickening out himself because he's the champion of the city. He should be actually orchestrating, right? He's orchestrating the attack on I forget his name, on Gaal, right? He's the one who's so he should have, Zvul should be organizing this, but he's actually throwing it back at Avimelech, and he's going to pretend like nothing is wrong, and the whole city will get ransacked once the morning opens and they leave the city. So let's continue. Vayakam Avimelech v'chol ha'am asher imo layla, and this is what Avimelech does. He takes his entire men with him through the night. Vayervu al Shechem arba'a rashim. They created 4 different units that hid in 4 different places. So 4 different fronts, most likely north, south, east, west, or 4 different areas around town. In the morning, Vayetze Gal ben Eved, Vayamod petach shar ha'ir. Suddenly, Gaal, the son of Eved, that right now he's the leader of the city, he comes out in the morning and he's standing in the entrance of the city. And Vayakam Avimelech v'ha'am asher ito min hamarav. And Avimelech, along with all his troops, come out and emerge from within their concealment. In other words, they expose themselves. Vayar Gal et ha'am. Gal sees this entire collection of people. Vayomer el Zvul. Zvul was somewhere nearby. He yells out to him and he says, Hine am yored mirashei harim. Look, there is an army, a huge amount of people coming from the mountains. Vayomer elav Zvul. And Zvul tells him, Etzel heharim ataroe ka'anashim. There are so many people that the shadows of the hills even look like men. In other words, it's a huge, huge army. So kind of now there's an interplay between Zvul and Gaal, as you will see shortly. Vayosef od Gaal ledaber. Gaal continues to speak. Vayomer hine am yordim me'im tabur haaretz v'rosh echad ba miderech elon me'onanim. Gaal spoke up again. Look, an army is marching down from Tabur Eretz, and another column, another army is also coming down from the direction of Elon Me'onanim. So now Zvulun retorts and says, Vayomer lav Zvul, Ayefo picha sher tomar. Where is that mouth of yours that was talking so hotly beforehand that you're going to wipe out Avimelech if he brings a whole army and you're going to wipe out his reign? Where's that mouth? Where's that confidence? Mi Avimelech kinavdenu. Where's that mouth that says, who's Avimelech that we should worship him? Alo zeha amasher ma'astabo. Here, look in front of you. In front of you is that army that you sneered at, that you laughed at. Bo tzena tavilachem. Go out and battle it. Exactly. Put your money where your mouth is. That's what he's telling him. So Gaal goes out. Vayetze Gaal lifnei Baalei Shechem. Gaal now has to, right? This is what he told Shechem. If this happens, this is the scenario. He's going to go out and he's going to fight against Avimelech, and he's going to restore power, and he will receive the power. That's what he said. I will rule afterwards. So it's an interplay of power. So Gaal goes out, and he's witnessed by Baalei Shechem. He sees a citizen of Shechem, can see him and his fellow companions going out to war. Vaylachem b'Avimelech, and he goes out to battle against Avimelech. However, Vayrodfehu Avimelech overpowers him, and now he's fleeing. Gaal recognizes that he's outgunned, outmanned, and he flees. And Avimelech chases him down. Vayanos mipanav, and he's pursuing him. Vayplu chalalim rabim ad petach hasha'ar. And many fell slain all the way to the entrance of the gate. In other words, all the way from far to the city, There were all these people who were slain. Vayeshev Avimelech baruma, vaygaresh Zvul et Gal vetechav mishevet bishchem. And Avimelech returns to Ruma. So you see that there's two names, Ruma, and also, where we have it here, and Torma. Torma and Orma are the same cities. It has the two different names, okay? So Avimelech returns back to Aruma, or Ruma, and Zvul chases out and no longer allows Gaal and his companions to enter Shechem. So he's banned and kicked out. Vayim achorat, the next day, Vayetzeha Masadeh Vayagidu al Avimelech, and the people went onto the field, and this was told as well to Avimelech. So, do you get to see what's happening again? Avimelech wants them to stay in the city. They don't have any rights. They can't go out and do what they want to do. They can't go out and plant their fields. They are totally at his mercy. What happens again? Vayikach et ha'am, he takes his army. Vayichetzem lishlosha rashim. This time he splits them into 3 different units. Vayirov basadeh, just like last time, he ambushes in the fields, he hides in the fields. Vayar vinei ha'am yotzeh min ha'ir, vayakom alehem vayakem. And he noticed that they come out of the city, so there was a ban. They were not allowed to leave the city. And here they are going out in the fields, and he ambushes them, and he struck them down. V'Avimelech v'harashim asher imo pashtu vayamdu. And while Avimelech and the column or the unit that followed him, he was with one unit, dashed ahead, vayamdu petach shar ha'ir, and they commanded, they took position at the entrance of the city. Ushnei harashim, the remaining 2, remember this time there were only 3 units, the remaining 2, pashtu al kol asher basadeh vayakum, they took care of anything that was moving in the field. So the unit with Avimelech decided to go and pillage the city, while the 2 other units are taking care of all the people who are outside. Avimelech nilcham ba'ir, Avimelech and his unit fought against the city, kol hayomahu, the entire day, vayilkod et ha'ir, and he actually finally is able to capture the entire city. Ve'etam asher baharag, and he wiped out, massacred all the people that lived in it. Vaitot et ha'ir vaizre ha'melach, and he burns down the city. He blazes the city. Vaizre ha'melach, and he sowed it with salt. What does it mean, sowed it with salt? How do you sow salt?
He rendered it infertile.
Exactly. In other words, he destroyed everything that was economically viable, anything that was worthy of that city. He basically made that place non-livable.
Sounds like Putin.
Pardon?
Sounds like Putin.
Yeah, maybe this is, oh boy, yeah. So now he takes care of Shechem. So does that sound, it sounds familiar? Remember what did Yotam say? Remember Yotam, the young brother?
Yeah.
He made 2 curses. One, that a flame come out of Avimelech to burn Shechem, and one that a flame comes out of Shechem to burn Avimelech. Do you remember that? Like a mirror. So here we have one coming out. Let's continue on. Vaishmeu kol baalei migdal Shechem. There was just outside, there was another city. Obviously, you can tell that is the name Shechem is in there as well. Migdal Shechem, the tower of Shechem. Vayavo el Tzriach, Beit El Brit, and there they hid in the tunnel of the temple of Beit El Brit. So they ran into their temple, whatever of their religion that they were following, and they hid underground in some kind of tunnel. Vayugad l'Avimelech, Avimelech found out what they did. Kihit kaptsu kol baalei migdal Shechem, that all the citizens of Migdal Shechem, the tower of Shechem, that they all gathered in this place. Vayal Avimelech Hart Salmon. So he gathers up all his troops and he goes up to Mount Salmon. Hu v'cholam asher ito, his entire army. Vaikach Avimelech et hakardmut be'ado. Avimelech takes this axe or some kind of tool that cuts wood. Vaichrot shochat eitzim. And he started to chop down the limbs of trees. Vaisaeha vayasem al shichmo. He carried it and put it on his shoulder, the piece of wood. Vayomer el ha'am asher imo, and he yelled out to all the people that were with him, to his army. Ma reitem asiti, maharu asu kamoni. That which you saw, what I did, copy exactly what you saw me do. So what did he just do?
Axel lopped off the tree.
Right. So he chopped and he's carrying pieces of wood. So he's telling everybody, go and collect wood. So, vaychretu gam kol ha'am ish socho. And so each of the troops also went out and chopped down all these pieces of wood. Vayalchu acharem Avimelech, and they went, followed in Avimelech's footsteps. Vayasimu al hatzriach, and they gathered all this wood and they put it on the tunnel. Vayatzitu alehem et hatzriach ba'esh, and they set all these pieces of wood on fire. Vayamutu gam kol anshe migdal Shechem. And so they also wiped out all the adjacent city of Migdal Shechem, ke'elef ish ve'isha, around 1,000 men and women. So in other words, another second city that Avimelech creates definitely a crime against his people. Vayelech Avimelech el Tevetz, vayichan betevetz vayil tedeha. Now, after he has this, Avimelech decides he's going to go to another city, and he camps around it, and finally he also occupies and takes it over. But Migdal Oz haya betoch ha'ir, for within the city there was a fortified tower. Vayanusu shama kol ha'anashim vehanashim, and all the people that were able to get into this tower ran there. They realized that they heard what happened in Shechem. They heard what happened in the tower of Shechem, which was the next city. They can read the writing on the wall. They're trying to survive. They go into this fortified tower. V'chol balei ha'ir, everybody who was able to get in there. Vayizgeru ba'adam, they close and fortify themselves. Vayalu al gag hamigdal, and they went to the tallest part of this tower, which was obviously the roof. So they're trying to get away from this guy. Vayavo Avimelech ar hamigdal. He has no resistance. Avimelech reaches this tower. Vaylachem, but when he's trying to attack it and fight it, Vaygash ad petach hamigdal lesorfo va'esh, and he approaches the door, or the entrance to this tower, and he has the intention of burning it down with fire. Vatashlech isha achat pelach rechev al rosh Avimelech. Here comes, one woman raises up and drops an upper millstone and hits Avimelech right on his noggin, right on his head. Vataritz ed gul golto, and she basically cracks his skull. Vaikra mirail hanar, and now you can just imagine Avimelech is not exactly in too happy. He calls his attendant. Every important person had person that was his assistant. He calls to his assistants, Nosek Hilav, the one who carried all his weaponry, and he commands him, Vayomer lo shlov charbecha umoteteni, draw out your sword and kill me. Why? Pen yomruli isha haragatuhu. I don't want anyone to say that a woman had slain me. Vayitkarevu na'aro vayamot. And so his assistant takes out his sword and stabs him and kills him. Does it sound like everybody see what happens?
Yeah.
Yatom's Manat. Here comes a second one. So now from the fire through all of this rage, now he is wiped out. Vayru ish Israel kimet Avimelech. Finally, when the men of Israel saw that Avimelech had died, everybody returned home, returned to their place. Vayashev Elohim et ra'at Avimelech asher sal aviv lahrog et shivim echav. And God repaid Avimelech with the wickedness which he had performed against his father, which was to kill his 70 offspring, his 70 brothers. Ve'et kol ra'at anshei Shechem heshiv Elohim berosham. And as well, God repaid all the citizens of Shechem with the wickedness that they deserved. Vatavo alehem kilalat Yotam ben Yerubbaal, and the curse of Yotam fell upon them, which was to be wiped out. So this is, I think it's quite an amazing turn of events. Any questions? I see Esther has a question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why God picked a woman to do this. And in my mind, I'm thinking maybe because a woman gave birth to him and she made a mistake.
I think this was even more of, I think it's self-evident in exactly what he says.
He was
For
a
him-
sick man.
No, for him it was such, there was an honor system in terms of, you facing your enemy or somebody who you're going to be fighting against. But if you're stronger than I am, then you're going to take me, fine. But in the hands of a woman, that is such an insult. That is such an insult to him. That how can he be beaten by a woman? That it was utter. Not only that, he would have been dead anyway. So what embarrassment? But his legacy would be of what weakness he has, that a woman was able to finally knock him out of commission. And so he was that was, I think, that even make him even feel even smaller, that it was for himself that God arranged that a woman is the one who actually disposes of him, to the point where he is really committing suicide. This is, if you want to call it, it's aided suicide. He's ordering somebody to kill him. He realizes that he's not going to survive. But what an embarrassment! He has to die knowing that it was a woman that maimed him. In other words, really a double whammy, so to speak, if you want to look at it that way. And I think it's such a wonderful. Where, by the way, where do we have another woman that is the heroine? Remember?
Yes,
All right.
Dvorah was, but who was? It wasn't.
it was her name. Yeah.
Judith.
Judith, exactly. Remember, Judith was the one who comes in. So absolutely. So we have so far we had Otniel, we had Ehud, we had Shamgar, we had Dvorah and Gidon. We do have this third guy named Avimelech, but he's not a shofet, but he did rule for 3 years. That's out of 5, twice, or actually out of 6, twice the wicked one has actually been defeated by whom?
Woman.
A woman. So I think it's very fitting. So it's a beautiful how do you call it? It's a beautiful homage, and you see that in I think part of our history. And I'm not saying that there's no room for more reform, etc. But women were seen as heroines. There was room for it wasn't an embarrassment from religious perspective or our historical perspective. Women did rise up and fight, and you see it very, very clearly. She took that opportunity. She maybe she should join the Olympics, and she with her with her beautiful aim, and she knocked him out. So Avimelech right now is gone. So we've had the first one, Othniel, was 40 years. We had Ehud 80 years, which is 40 times 2. We had Shamgar, which was for a single year. And then we had Dvorah 40, Gidon 40. And then we have Avimelech's reign was for 3 years.
Yosi,
Yes, Parla.
I missed last week, so I hope this isn't a stupid question, but I'm wondering what is this to explain what happened for every stage, this story? Because I'm wondering what the purpose of the story is.
I think
It's violent, very violent.
It's super violent. I think part of it is the people still. It's historical, and part of it is putting your faith in others, as opposed to following the guidelines which were set. I think that is really moving on off your way. The people had a very difficult time with connecting with God. They needed a human conduit, so to speak, to connect with God. However, sometimes who they put their trust in were not exactly people who were leading them as the conduit. They're the ones who were actually wanted the power, and they were actually pushing them away from God, as opposed to being there kind of to administer that they are loyal to God. And what ends up happening is they're punished. Sometimes this was very, very severely, but we also see that when they also lost their ways, they suddenly created this heinous, like horrible crimes against their brethren, against his brothers. These were not strangers or people who, let's say, didn't mean anything to, or should not have meant anything to him. Let's say just people who you're running against. These were your brothers. These were from the loins of your father. And there was no shame. There was no whatsoever any type of embarrassment or hesitation, I should say, to perform, to get rid of anybody who may be a threat to you, no matter who they were. Showing this was one of the, I don't want to say one of the 10 commandments: do not kill. This was in cold blood. This was absolutely disgusting, horrific. And you see the idea that there are no laws, such simple laws as you can say, oh, why do we need the 10 commandments? Of course, you know not to steal. Oh, you know not to kill. You know not to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you see that when you do fall off the beaten path, it's so easy to break these simple rules that we think are evident, self-evident. No, they're not. If you get somebody who should not be in rule, then we run a very, very serious threat of us losing our humanity as well. So I think there's, and you can see this throughout history, very similar. I mean, not what people in literally, maybe not in our generation, but certainly a generation earlier than us. Look what happened to our people in Europe just 80 years ago. It's crazy. 80 years ago. This is not, this is people, these people are barbarics. 80 years ago. That's
But it continues to happen.
Exactly.
This continues to happen, and the world just doesn't seem to learn. People would call this Abimelech a psychopathic killer today. I mean, and we see it happening right now. Not only in the, I see it like in the war in Ukraine, the way that's going, but just the people on the street these days, taking up arms and killing kids, and taking up arms and just driving, or a car and driving over strangers.
Yeah. So this is where you see when there isn't a sense of value. Maybe that's a good word to use. Certain values are pushed aside. It's very easy for people to lose humanity.
Yeah.
It was only God waking them up. And even the word, it's interesting how the words are that God uses is he created a strife, ill feeling between Avimelech and Shechem. Suddenly now they're getting mad at what he did to his brethren and how we aided him to get into power. But only God inserting that. Otherwise, they felt very comfortable aligning themselves with Avimelech. And that's and as rightfully, Esther, as you said, we believe in somebody and a cause, and I mean, I keep on referring to the Holocaust because it's something for people, and others have, of course, also suffered. But it's you get somebody who's going to get you out of the yuck, somebody who's going to bring prosperity, bring this nation number one, will bring this race to the best place that it'll ever be. And in order to do that, we need to do this, and suddenly people have lost. It sickens me. I'm just thinking of the crimes that neighbors would perpetrate against people who they maybe even dined with. The moment that there is a reason for it, and it's given, there's a green light, we're allowed to do it because now it's justified, and there's no justification for it. And this as well is a perfect example of it. And that is why we have these stories. These stories are all the stories that we have in Tanakh are stories that are not only just give you a historical perspective of what happened, but really teach a lesson that is never lost. Unfortunately, it's something that it should awaken us to be very, very sensitive to certain situations. And exactly as we said, these things keep on happening, and it's just there to remind us they will happen. If we don't stop it, if we allow ourselves to fall within this, it will happen again. And the story will, the name of the characters just change and the name of the places just change. But unfortunately, the crimes themselves don't. And that is the lesson that we're trying, I think that Tanakh wants to teach us. And all these different stories are universal in their stories. It's not just a one-time happening. It's the idea of what these different situations can create.
I think Esther had a really important point that these things happen today that we don't see the same value, but at the same time, people are not as religious. There's no central network holding people together.
It's I always say there is no, when everything is politically correct, everything becomes politically incorrect. Like there is no gray. When you take white and you add black to it, and now everything is gray, means that nothing is really clear anymore, and this is not that, and that is not this. Yes, there's certain things that you're not allowed to say. Yes, you know what? When we have rights do come to a certain limit. No, you can't yell fire in a theater. You can't yell. But why can't I yell it? It's a free world. I'm allowed to. It's a democracy. Why are you restricting me? No, because that can actually cause other things. There's a speed limit on the highway. It's not about you wanting to get fastest to your destination, but there's safety involved because people might be changing lanes, etc. There are rules. We do have to give up when we live together with people. We do give up some of our rights for the benefit of the entire community. The moment that people realize that, hey, my rights trump your rights, my rights are better than your rights. You have no rights, but I do have rights because my rights, trump yours. We're in a very, very, very dangerous situation, and this you can see it. This was the people of Shechem, after they're the ones who elected him, they're the ones who are being also victimized. He realized he's a maniacal. I mean, I think it would be wonderful to see really like a psychological study done on the Avimelech, which there's only a quick chapter on him, although it's a really long chapter of how he is. This is like the typical, like, ding dong, exactly, checks off all the marks of a mass serial killer. This is what he is. Somebody who of a tyrant. But beyond that, this is Hitler. This is exactly what he is, and in different clothes, but exactly the same thing. He had that ability to sway people. He had that, and then he uses that to change people's perspective and take advantage of it to create crimes that are unthinkable, really unthinkable. And if you ask somebody today, a young kid, and who has, and you tell them, do you think that can ever happen again? They'll tell you, absolutely not, because we understand we're human beings. We're 2023. We're not 1923. We're 2023. And yeah, that's the same thing that people in 1923 were saying. We're not 1823 or 1723 or 1623. And history repeats itself exactly as you said, Esther. Absolutely. And that's the universal message of the stories that we have in Tanakh, and particularly this one, even though it's only one chapter, and it was important to say.
Mhm.
There is hope because not everybody in the world is like that.
100%, 100%. But I think the call is to the public. In other words, it's not to the person who's in charge. It's the people who put him in charge. That is I think the call to wake up in terms of who we elect and who we put our trust in. There's a psalm that we recite. Don't put your the David Hashem Orivi Ishim Emira, which we recite between the last month of Elul and Rosh Hashanah, and don't put your trust in men. And it's not that you can't elect, so nobody will ever elect, but at the end of the day, your values, nobody should be telling you what your value. You have to have your own values, and you will know who to follow by your values. If you have no set grounds and you're letting somebody else write the rules for you, how you should believe, think, what you should do, you're in a very, very dangerous. You should have your own set of morals, of mores, of values, and then you'll know who you want to establish as your role model to govern, and that's very, very important to note.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I wanted to say one more thing. Can
Yeah.
I?
Absolutely, Farla.
So I find this story very discouraging because of what's going on now with Putin and the killings and the violence that's being allowed and can't be controlled. It's like back in the biblical times. Nothing has changed. It's really, it's crazy.
I think that the idea that you will, if you think that we are way more advanced than they are, we're way more intelligent than they are, in tune with things, sensitive, whatever you want to call. At the end of the day, we do have certain streaks that are animalistic, and you see it very clearly. And that really is what religion is supposed to put at bay, to recognize that you have these wicked, that if you don't put them, if you're not in charge of them, you can really quickly fall off the beaten path. And that is what Shoftim is all about. Shoftim is, they're following the rules. There's peace, there's tranquility. And the moment that they think that they're all in a happy place, everything's good, it's because of me, very easily they lose their way. And the moment that they lose their way, dangerous and really wicked things happen until God again has to intervene, settle up a clean house, restore some order. But God, it's like a parent wanting, how many lessons before you learn? How many more? And it seems almost like we never really learn. It just how far in between our crimes, so to speak. And it's sad in a way. You're absolutely, it is very, very sad, but it's same time it plays, it's very, very, very relevant today. I'm just gonna hold on one second. Yeah, I'm just gonna